In Peru, social movements continue to mobilize, demanding Dina Boluarte's resignation in a constituent process amidst repressive actions that have left at least 28 dead. In Russia, President Vladimir Putin announced that Russia will achieve the objective of the special operation in Ukraine despite NATO's interference. Gambian authorities have foiled a military coup attempt and arrested 4 soldiers plotting to overthrow President Adama Barrow's administration. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Social forces continue to rally to call for the resignation of Dina Boluarte and a constitutional process in the midst of repressive actions that have left at least 28 people dead. In the capital city of Lima, citizens went to the San Martin Square to decline the latest actions taken by the government of the designated President Dina Boluarte. At the same time, they called for the immediate restitution of Pedro Castillo. Also in the city of Andahuay, the popular forces went on a protest through the main streets of that city. The protesters called on the population to join the street activity, and at the same time they called for regional strikes. Peruvian human rights organizations and social activists denounced the persecution that the government of Dina Boluarte has undertaken against social leaders in the midst of the political crisis that the country is experiencing. The social forces warned that the Peruvian intelligence police have begun to carry out actions of identification and detention of social leaders and point out that the rights and liberties of the citizens are being put at risk. The Peruvian Farmers Confederation denounced that its headquarters were raided recently by the police with the objective of arresting the farmers meeting inside. The National Agrarian Confederation pointed out that the persecution of the demonstrators reveals a serious violation of human rights by what they describe as illegitimate government of Dina Boluarte. Social and human rights organizations in Argentina protest on Wednesday to demand the release of the leader of the Tupac Amaru Neighborhood Association, Milagro Sala. The demonstration began with a gathering at the intersection of May Avenue and July 9th Avenue and plans to continue with a march towards Plaza de Mayo. Protesters stated they will remain at the plaza until Friday to demand the national government grant a pardon to Milagro Sala before the end of the holidays. The call came after the Supreme Court of Justice ratified a 13-year prison sentence against the leader of the Tupac Amaru movement for the crimes of illicit association, extortion, and defrauding the state. The Bolivian Minister of Government, Eduardo del Castillo, ruled out the return of the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration to his country from which it was expelled. This happened in November 2008 when the then President of Bolivia, Evo Morales, accused that agency and the U.S. Ambassador Philip Goldberg of participating in a right-wing plot to overthrow him.
I take this opportunity to tell all the Bolivian people that as long as we are the government and we are at the head of a Ministry of Government, the DEA will not return to our country, and I emphatically deny any assertions of any person who says that the DEA is inside the national territory. I would like to tell you that this is completely false because we know our history and we will never want to repeat it.
Colombian authorities continue operations to put out the fire that affected 2 oil storage tanks in the city of Barranquilla, leaving 1 person dead. Within this framework, the fire departments are working on strategies to completely mitigate the flames, with the aim of preventing them from spreading to other fuel containers. For his part, the President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, informed that he is in contact with the authorities of Barranquilla to give some instructions. At the same time, he expressed his sympathy with the family of the deceased firefighter, while the mayor of Barranquilla, Jaime Peruano, stated that they are monitoring the course of the situation. Brazil's Chamber of Deputies held a second vote on Wednesday on a proposed constitutional amendment aimed at maintaining social welfare assistance to those living in poverty through the Bolsa Familia program. The initiative, promoted by President-elect Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva, was endorsed in the first vote on Tuesday with the support of 331 legislators, while 168 voted against, among the parliamentarians who support outgoing President Jair Bolsonaro. With the proposal, Lula da Silva seeks to fulfill his main campaign promises, which include an additional quota of 150 reals, equivalent to $29 for each child up to 6 years of age. In Brazil, one person was seriously injured after an explosion in a restaurant in the northeast of the country. After the event, the fire department reported that the only injured person is a 35-year-old man who was working as a security guard at the establishment. According to preliminary reports, the event occurred in the city of Teresita, when the establishment exploded for reasons so far not stated, although unofficial sources reported a strong gas smell in the place. On the other hand, officials stated that the restaurant was completely destroyed by the detonation and other neighboring properties were severely damaged. In view of this situation, authorities called on civil engineering professionals to assess the possible risk in the infrastructure. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that his country's armed forces will fulfill the objectives of the special operation in Ukraine in spite of NATO's interference. During a meeting with the Defense Ministry's leadership, the head of state stressed that the military will accomplish its purposes in order to demilitarize and denazify the Kiev regime to ensure the safety of citizens in all territories of the country. Furthermore, the Russian president recalled that the tragedy in Ukraine was not promoted by Moscow, but by countries of the West to use the Kiev regime against Russia following the collapse of the Soviet Union. Putin also highlighted the work of the Russian military in the military operation.
I have nothing to be blamed for. I say this with complete responsibility. We have always, and you know my position, we have always considered the Ukrainian people a fraternal people. I still think so. And what is happening now is a tragedy, our common tragedy, but it is not the result of our policy. On the contrary, this is the result of the policy of other countries, third countries, which have always striven for this, towards the disintegration of the Russian world.
The Russian head of state added that Moscow always intended to have a harmonious relationship with the West, but that the civilized world did not expect anything from Russia. They only wanted and created chaos.
We have always wanted to be part of a so-called civilized world, and after the collapse of the Soviet Union, which we did with our own hands, for some reason it seemed to us that any day soon we would become part of that so-called civilized world. And as it turned out, we were not expected there. Our strategic opponents have had the goal of disintegrating and weakening our country for centuries. There's nothing new here. This country is too big, as they think. It poses a threat to someone, so it needs to be slightly cut apart, split up.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced that the government has authorized a new military assistance package for Ukraine worth $1.85 billion. It will include the first deliveries of Patriot air defense systems. The senior official said in a statement that $1 billion will be authorized by President Joe Biden and the Department of Defense, while the additional $850 million come under the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative. The package is expected to be formally announced by Biden after his meeting this afternoon with his Ukrainian counterpart, Vladimir Zelensky, who began his official visit to the U.S. on Wednesday. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky met Wednesday at the White House with his counterpart Joe Biden. After the meeting, the two heads of state held a press conference where they addressed the most important issues of their meeting and answered questions from journalists. According to local media, this is the first time that the Ukrainian president has left his country since the Russian military operation began on February 24th. The UN nuclear watchdog International Atomic Energy Agency has confirmed that its chief, Rafael Grossi, will be traveling to Moscow on Thursday to discuss nuclear safety at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in southern Ukraine. A statement from the IAEA confirmed that Director General Grossi will be in Moscow on Thursday. The visit is part of ongoing high-level consultations he's holding to agree on and implement a nuclear safety zone around the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant as soon as possible. The plant, which has come under repeated bombardment, has raised fears of a nuclear catastrophe. Russia and Ukraine have blamed each other for the attacks. Grossi is not scheduled to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin during the visit, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said this Wednesday. On Wednesday, medicine companies in China are prioritizing the supply of anti-fever drugs since the relaxation of COVID-19 restrictions earlier this month. According to official media in the central city of Wuhan, where the coronavirus was first discovered, more than 3 million tablets of ibuprofen were being delivered to medical institutions and pharmacies in order to meet the maximum demands of people in the city. Each person can buy up to 6 tablets of anti-fever drugs. China is seeing a surge of cases after the government last week eased some of the world's strictest COVID-19 containment measures. This Wednesday, World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said in a briefing that the UN need more information about the cases on COVID-19 severity in China, particularly regarding hospital and intensive care unit admissions, to make a comprehensive risk assessment of the situation.
WHO is very concerned over the evolving situation in China, with increasing reports of severe disease. In order to make a comprehensive risk assessment of the situation on the ground, WHO needs more detailed information on disease severity, hospital admissions, and requirements for ICU support. WHO is supporting China to focus its efforts on vaccinating people at the highest risk across the country.
In Malaysia, the death toll rose to 26 after a landslide in the city of Batang, Kali, in the state of Selangor. According to the authorities, 7 other people are still missing. Officials said that 680 search personnel, police and firefighters are continuing to work on the situation. The causes of the incident, which occurred at an organic farm near the capital Kuala Lumpur, are so far unknown. The incident occurred at a time when the country is in the middle of monsoon season, which has already forced the displacement of more than 70,000 people. We have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In Syria, internally displaced people returning to Damascus-controlled regions denounced the critical humanitarian situation in U.S.-occupied areas. The deputy head of the Russian Reconciliation Center for Syria, Major General Oleg Yegorov, reported that the center had received information about the disastrous situation in the Rukban refugee camp in southern Syria. The Russian official noted that camp residents are experiencing shortages of food, essential items, medicine, and fuel. Yegorov said that the Reconciliation Center, in cooperation with the Syrian Arab Red Crescent, has been seeking to open a safe corridor for a humanitarian convoy to the Rukban camp for the past 6 months. However, he denounced that the United States Central Command has been responsible for damaging all these initiatives. Gambian authorities have foiled a military coup attempt and arrested 4 soldiers plotting to overthrow President Adama Barrow's administration, according to a governmental statement released on Wednesday. The Gambian Armed Forces High Command arrested 4 soldiers linked to the alleged coup after a military operation on Tuesday. Coup attempts are not uncommon in Gambia, a tiny West African country with a population of 2.5 million and almost entirely surrounded by Senegal, which is still reeling from over 2 decades under former President Yahya Jammeh marked by authoritarianism and alleged abuses. The army is in pursuit of 3 other alleged accomplices and investigations are ongoing. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa vowed to unite the ANC and tackle graft after the ruling party re-elected him for a second term despite a recent scandal. Ending a 5-day conference, around 4,000 delegates chose Ramaphosa after a bruising battle against his former health minister, Zweli Mkhize. The ANC's majority in the National Assembly is under threat, given that in the last local government elections, where they won less than 50% of the vote, a first in a history spanning more than a century. Ramaphosa's victory opens the way for him to win a second term in power if the ANC win the next general elections in 2024.
We have recognized that corruption within the ANC is indeed a dire threat to the continued existence of our organization and to the future of the National Democratic Revolution. We have recognized the great progress that has been made over the last 5 years in tackling corruption within our ranks, within the state, and across society. But we have also acknowledged that we have not done enough to end corruption, to reverse the effects of state capture, and to deal with the corrosive effects of the ANC and institutions across society.
Germany will be returning 20 historic bronze sculptures to Nigeria as part of efforts to address its colonial past. German's Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock made this announcement on Tuesday. Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Minister Geoffrey Onyeama expressed deep gratitude to Germany as he urged England and other countries in possession of other artifacts to return them on moral grounds. The prized cultural artifact known as Benin bronzes were looted from Nigeria while under colonial rule. The sculptures will be handed over to Nigerian officials in a ceremony at the capital Abuja. Cast in brass and bronze with ancient designs, the sculptures were used in rituals to honor Benin people's ancestors and rulers. In recent years, Nigerian authorities have intensified efforts to get looted artifacts returned. Germany has pledged to repatriate more than 1,000 cultural artifacts in the coming years.
I think as Germans and Europeans, we should really pause for a moment and reflect on what this actually means. What it means not to have crucial part of your history with you, but to have it taken from you. What would it mean to us to be deprived of our cultural heritage? Not to be able to marvel the Gutenberg Bible in Mainz, to be unable to admire Martin Luther's writings, to stand in front of a sculpture by Käthe Kollwitz in Berlin, or at Goethe's desk in Weimar. To you here in Nigeria, however, this loss has been your reality for your whole life. Today, we are here to return the Benin bronzes to where they belong, to the people of Nigeria.
The former president of Russia and current vice president of the country's Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, was received by the president of China, Xi Jinping, in Beijing. The former president said that during the meeting with the leader of the Asian country, they discussed the interaction between Moscow and Beijing, as well as economic issues and industrial cooperation. In addition, Medvedev teams informed that the Russian politician has conveyed a message from President Vladimir Putin to his Chinese counterpart. After the meeting, the Russian senior officials stressed the importance of the strategic partnership between Moscow and Beijing.
Negotiations were held today with the General Secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, Chairman of the People's Republic of China, Xi Jinping. We discussed issues of interaction between the two ruling parties, between the Communist Party of China and United Russia, as well as issues of bilateral cooperation or strategic partnership with China in all areas, including, of course, the economy, industrial cooperation, and much more. We discussed international issues, including, of course, the conflict in Ukraine. These talks were very useful.
We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.